Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Welcome for another training session. It's a third book of Saudi Aramco pre-qualification work permit receiver, and I hope you'll get some time to watch the first two videos related to hazard recognition and controls, and the second book about confined space entry. Now we are going to discuss the third book, or you can say the third procedure of isolation, lockout, and use of whole tax. We call it LOTO as well. So what we're what's the key objective of this terminal? That you will correctly be able to identify the main requirements to comply with the Saudi Aramco corporate isolation, lockout, and hold tag program as per GI 6.012. So 6.012 is relevant to this particular lockout tagout program. Now, what are the key objectives? Same like other books, we have, four important objectives, and you must be capable at the end of this course, like summarize the roles of responsibilities of employees and contractors involved in isolation and lock and tag, like LOTO. And of course, the second objective is to recognize the equipment, energy, or systems that require the application of isolation, lockout, tagout, or identify the correct types of isolation methods to make equipment, energy, or system safe. Summarize how to return equipment to a safe operational. So for easy understanding, just keywords, because no one can memorize, all the words. So better to go with smart approach. So what are the key objectives? To understand roles and responsibilities, uh, recognizing different kind of systems or equipment, and identification of isolation methods, and also how to return equipment to a safe operation. So four objectives are there. So let's start with roles and responsibilities, because any procedure, any sort of procedure you have, of course, roles and responsibilities are a critical part of that SOP or a procedure. And we truly need to guide within this procedure who will do what, when, how, where, and even no harm to clear their why as well, why they need to do this. So let's start with the roles and responsibilities. We're going to discuss about proponent managers, operations and maintenance, and contractions work queues. So three important domains of responsibilities relevant to proponent managers, operations and maintenance, contractors, and work queues. So let's go with proponent managers. So the number one major responsibility of proponent managers are they are responsible to develop. So just remember the word development. So they are fully responsible to develop local isolation lockout tagout program, or use GI 6.012. And second major responsibility of proponent managers is develop site-specific isolation lockout tagout procedures, because any program, whatever you develop, without procedures, it will have no meaning. So you truly need to prepare some sort of procedures. And the number third responsibility of proponent managers is to identify isolating points and locations. And the fourth one is identify types of isolating devices to be used. So just as a summarize, four important words are there, four major responsibilities, like program to be developed by proponent managers, procedures, and isolating points, and of course the devices. They need to identify which type of isolating devices we can use, at a solid ground, actually, as per Saudi Aramco standards or as per international standards. So let's talk about key responsibilities of operations and maintenance. They are responsible for implementation, because program was developed by proponent managers, procedures were developed by proponent managers, even identification of different systems or points, that's also done by proponent managers. Now, what we need to do is make sure we have operational team or a kind of maintenance team to implement isolation lockout tagout procedures like as per GI 61012. Provide local site specific isolation LOTO training. So that's also their responsibility. Provide isolation lockout equipment. So what are their major responsibilities? Implementation, training, because without training, how come you can implement, So implementation through procedures, through trainings, provide isolation lockout equipment, and also check and verify isolations. So implementation, procedures, training, equipment, and checking and verification. So these are major responsibilities of operations and maintenance. Now, contractor, they are also equally responsible for checking and verification of the isolation. All workers must have individual protection and use multiple lockouts or group lockout box. Actions on leaving the work site could be temporarily, or maybe shift change, or even the job completed, right? So these at that time you need to take some actions accurately as per the procedures. Now, you as a contractor, what are your responsibilities or your work to? You must be following local site specific isolation procedures as per Saudi Aramco GI 6.012. So you are responsible to follow. So your major responsibility is to follow. Follow what? All sort of safety, these isolation procedures or lockout tagger procedures as per GI 6.012. That is all about of part 1.1 of book number 3 of lockout tagger and hold tag. So just make sure you complete this exercise with 100% accuracy. There shouldn't be any wrong answer. Don't go for the exercise until you understand all the concepts or technical points, or logically you are good enough to go for completing this exercise. Now, the second part is 1.2 is isolation and lockout application. How we can apply? Because no doubt there is a program, there are procedures available, training is done, operation and maintenance team responsibilities are clear. Even proponent managers, they know their responsibilities, and same way the contractors that work through is also well guided. What are their responsibilities, right? Now it's time to understand how we can apply, this isolation and lockout. First of all, before we understand the application, no harm to understand why do we need isolation and lockout tagger. Isolation and LOTO is required for individual protection of workers when doing maintenance work. So whenever there is a maintenance project or work, of course, we need individual protection for our workers. That is why we need isolation and lockout tagger. However, isolation and LOTO is needed to prevent unexpected or uncontrolled energizing or pressurizing of systems, piping, or equipment. So that is an important point to remember and to understand technically also. Isolation and lockout is needed to prevent. So it's a prevention actually to avoid from unexpected or uncontrolled energizing or pressurizing of systems, piping, or equipment. But still, even though Saudi Aramco have reliability engineers or a lot of maintenance experts and even excellent operation engineers or a kind of operation managers even, but still, even to be very honest, the excellent equipment and technology is there, but still Saudi Aramco is claiming the 5 fatal failures are there. So that means 100% safety still is a big question mark. But anyhow, we truly need to understand what 5 fatal failures still could be there. If you don't do your job with better perfection, So failure to what? Stop equipment, it's a fatal failure. Disconnect from power source, you thought it's done, might be it's not done. You are unable to disconnect the power source, or you're unable to get, might be permission from the Saudi government at some level, and or you thought you disconnected, or you just turned off one breaker. Let's take an example. I mean, your mind says the power source is disconnected, but unfortunately it's not. and you didn't verify, while it was your major responsibility to verify, to inspect, to double check that the power source is fully disconnected. Otherwise, it would be a second fatal failure. Now, the third fatal failure is remove residual energy, the remained energy. Like you thought the hazardous materials are drained out, or you thought the electrical mechanical energy is fully locked out, but unfortunately still, or hydraulic and pneumatic, some pressure energies are there. And you believe or 98% already energy is removed. So 2% will not create any harm, No, it would be harmful, because consider if you're doing some hot work activities in a big oil storage tank and you thought a small amount of oil will not be creating any issue while you are welding, then you truly need to understand the scientific reasons of isolation and lockout tagout. Now, number 4 is prevent unexpected restarting. That's another fatal failure of number 4. Clear the area before restarting. This is another fatal failure. So 5 fatal failures we truly need to remember, not only for the exam, even as a WPR would be helping us at the project site. Because sometimes what is happening is you as a WPR have some certain informations, but your concepts are not clear. When you go for the project and you interact with Saudi Aramco and some of your colleagues at site, you don't understand the technical language at that site, how you're going to manage practically all these things, because any knowledge without proper implementation or a kind of application wouldn't be so much beneficial, right? So make sure whatever you are studying, you are capable to implement as well. So certain definitions we need to understand that are relevant to isolation, lockout, and tagout. First of all, let's understand what is energy control program, energy isolating device, lockout tagout, group lockout, authorized persons, affected persons. Let's start with energy control program like ECP. So energy control program, or most importantly, any sort of program must have minimum 3 elements. Number 1 is there must be some written procedures, training, because procedures will not be beneficial until you train to the relevant staff. And the third one is you truly need to have periodic inspection to ensure compliance to the local site procedures. So if you don't do periodically auditing, inspections, or kind of checking of compliance that your procedures are still well implemented and well maintained, because whenever we talk about a program or kind of procedures, and even after implementation, the biggest challenge is maintainability and sustainability, because we need to incorporate these procedures into our day-to-day activities, and nobody should be the violator there. Now, energy isolating device, how it looks like a mechanical device that physically prevent the transmission or release of energy. Examples, manually operated circuit breakers, quite available in the market. Disconnect switches are available, valve. We will discuss one by one all these methods of isolating. And the blind or similar device used to block or isolate. What is lockout tagout? Look at the picture. Just we need locks and we need tag. Group lockout. Basically, this would be feasible to avoid large numbers of locks and tags. Like if you have 20 different points which need to be locked out and tagged out, or you need to isolate. So it's much better to make sure you have group lockout instead of putting, like if you are 20 team members and 20 locks on each 20 points, so how come it would be feasible? Even Aramco will not allow, right? That is why they have a very strong strategy to use this group lockout whenever you work as a big team. So, but still, this group lockout procedure still will give protection to each individual. And what are the key steps, operations, which you really need to remember for group lockouts? Steps or procedures. Operations lock and tag each isolation point. Maintenance construction supervisor lock and tag the isolation point. So first, operation is the first one to put the lock and tag, and the last one to remove the lock and tag. So make sure you remember these two important points. So operation is the first one to put the lock and the last one to remove it. So maintenance and construction supervisors. So that means along with operation, maintenance and construction supervisor would also be responsible for putting their lock, and if you have suppose electrician as well, so another lock. And same way, if contracting employees are there, so they will use their lock, but on the group lockout box. Now, group lockout, maintenance, construction supervisor, what are they going to do? Key placed in the group lockout box, keys placed in the group lockout box. Operations, install lock and tag on the box first, keeps the key until the job is complete. So maintenance contractor worker, what they're going to do? Each worker places lock and tag on the box and keeps the key until the job is complete. So still your key, your lock, you are the one going to put your lock and you are the one going to remove your lock. But no one is authorized to remove the lock until the job is completed, or in case of emergency, of course, some scenarios are there, which we're going to discuss later on. But remember, operation is the first one to put the lock and the last one to remove the lock. So group lockout for jobs with a small number of workers, a multi lock has maybe used in place of group lockout box. Authorized person, who is the authorized person? The trained person. Just remember a trained person who isolates, locks and tags equipment in order to perform servicing or maintenance, usually a supervisor. Affected persons, make sure you understand somebody whose job require him to work, like the affected person, the person who is going to work later on after isolation or lockout tagger. Okay, because they are the one going to perform maintenance or completing the job after isolation or lockout tagger. So they would be affected person. So if there would be any mistake or any kind of error, or if the isolation or lockout tagger is not done 100% with better perfection, then the result, the consequence have to be faced by the workers working on that machine or within that area. It could be a confined space even. So make sure we all take care of our affected persons, because the affected person, the one who is going to work on that equipment. Now, application of locks and tags, performing planned maintenance, or we need locks and tags, making repairs, we need locks and tags. LOTO does not apply. That's also important point to remember. Work on code and plug equipment when unplugged from the energy source. The code and plug equipment is under the direct control of the employee. Now, how are we going to fill this lockout tag out? Just make sure you have mentioned clearly the location of the plant name, like Rastanura, liquid recovery, date and time, clearly must be mentioned, equipment, G55, and the reason for tagging must be mentioned again with full of clarity, like maintenance to replace bearing on pump motor, G55. What's the name? Ali Hassan, organization number must be there, badge number, phone number, and of course they need to sign it up. So clearly this lock hold tag will be a better visible awareness for all the employees. Whoever will be coming to that area, he can see that there is some lock and hold tags available, which he will not touch you. So for energy isolation is the process of what? Removing the possibility of an unexpected startup of the equipment or machine, eliminating what? All stored energy. Energy isolation is depending on what? The nature of energy can be electrical, can be pressure, right? The specific work to be conducted could be maintenance or even repair. The equipment and configuration piping could also be there. So multiple energy isolations. Energy isolation may be dependent on what? multiple energy sources, like example is fin-fan unit, and you can see in the picture. Okay, so mechanical block to stop fan moving in the wind. So we need to understand where for electrical energy, how we need to isolate, for mechanical energy, how we need to isolate, and the pipeline, either we are going to use disconnection or we'll put blinding actually. And to avoid that the fan should not move, we can use mechanical block as well. So electrical isolation on the motor, blinding to isolate piping. So what are the examples of energy or substation that required isolation? So remember, there are several energy types. So let's talk about like electrical, mechanical, process piping could be there. Process piping means within that maybe hydrocarbons, steam, hydraulic, or maybe pneumatic as well. Chemical, potential energy means spring loaded. So because of these energies, and most of these energies are everywhere in different kind of manufacturing industries, but in oil and gas, more frequently, of course, they are being used. Like there are certain pneumatic, hydraulic equipments, hydrocarbons, steaming processes there, a lot of chemicals in term. The chemical is not like only in solid shape or only in liquid shape, even in the air, like H2S is also a chemical, right? But hazardous chemical, and we truly need to learn how to control. That is why in the first book of hazard recognition control, we talk about CHB, chemical hazard bulletin. So for equipment isolation, what kind of equipment first of all are there? As an example, we can list up here. There are certain pipelines, electrical breakers, motors and pumps, compressors, and vessels and tanks, confined spaces, hydraulic presses, even fin fan. So these are some of the examples of equipment that require isolation. So maybe the examiner can create question from here, examples of equipment that require isolation. Maybe he will put vessels and tanks, confined spaces, fin fans, and all of the above. Now, what steps are required? This is one of the important slide, I would say. What steps are required to perform isolation? The first, important step is to identify the energy or equipment to be isolated. And even in the section 2, the hazardous checklist on permit, we need to communicate with affected personnel, and counter signatures on permit from affected organizations. What are the key steps? Turn off everything. Turn everything off. Specialized PP may be required. Example, SCBA, or look at in the picture, SCBA when opening lines in toxic service. Staying away is not an approved control measure for isolation. You need to remember that one. Remove and display all stored energy and may require EOLB permit. Previously, we call it release permit, but now the new standard says it's EOLB, like equipment opening line break. So 4 different types of permits are there, like hot work, cold work, confined space entry permit, and EOLB permit. And there are certain other permits like, radiography permit is there, and plenty of others as per the situation, but these 4 permits are mandatory. Now, when do you isolate? We truly need to remember before any maintenance or repair work starts, we need to isolate before confined space entry. So these are 2 important areas when we require this isolation. Now, what are the key steps? Again, an important slide. You truly need to understand. Number 1 step is, and you need to understand in sequence also. It's not like step 3 you can take as a 1 step. No. You need, first step means first step. Second step means second step. So prepare for shutdown, apply isolations, lock, but only approved lock, tag, apply tag and record on the list, clear, and that means clear the area, and then try. So try means you need to check with the isolation of the lockout tagout procedure, the technically is well done. There is no chance of any energy to be released or the equipment to be restarted. So make sure all the energies are well locked, isolated. That means the complete prevention system is required to keep our employees safe. So prepare for shutdown, apply isolation, lock, tag, clear, try. So two important steps: prepare for shutdown, apply isolations. These are two critical steps, and then quite easily lock, tag, clear, and try. Lock, tag, clear, and try. So try to start or open the equipment so you can be familiar. Either is there any chance of restarting? Let's take an example. You can complete this exercise on your book, understand this fin fan blade, the electrical, then upstream and downstream, and see where you can put blind or disconnection or valve you need to close or put lock and tag. So the third chapter you would say of this book is all about types of isolations. Like electrical isolation, we need to learn how to isolate electrical energy, like type of isolation devices to be used, isolate the equipment, lock and tag at the point of isolation, clear work area of equipment and personnel. Try to start the equipment at local start button by DCS or PC computers. So these are some of the steps related to electrical isolation. Now let's see a few others. Like electrical isolation, check the equipment is de-energized, ensure that it contains no stored energy. Now, if lockout or chain and lock is not possible, then what we're going to do? Remove fuses only by trained employee by ESO. ESO means electrical systems officer or electrical systems operator. Disconnect electrical cables, physically remove a component or apply tag. Now, that was all about electrical energy, how to isolate. So practically, even though there are certain engineers available with the contractor as well as with Saudi Aramco, so they know their job really well. But you as a WPR, make sure you are also fulfilling your job honestly. Mechanical isolation, locking or closing walls, use of blinds, look how blinds looks like. Physical removal of piping, look at the picture. And mechanical block. Process piping and equipment isolation, how are we going to do? Chemical, hydrochemical, steam piping and equipment are there. 4 methods of isolating are guided by Saudi Aramco. So these are single block wall, double block and bleed, disconnecting piping and blinding. So let's discuss one by one. Let's discuss about single block wall. Single block wall, look at the picture. What we're going to do is number 1 step, fully close the valve, attach chain lock and tag, drain pipeline, test for leakage. So testing and verification is important. But remember, this is not approved for confined space isolation or lockout tag. Now, process piping and equipment isolation, double block and bleed. Look at the picture. It will give you an idea. Double block and bleed. Okay, so 2 consecutive walls are there, chains. You need to close the valve again. The steps are lock and tag 2 consecutive walls on the same line. So same line. So he can create a question here, the examiner. Double block and bleed can be used only on 2 consecutive, only on the same line. So maybe he can give fill in the blanks or remove any word and start asking you with multiple options. Now, open drain wall, check for passing, not approved. But remember, this double block and bleed or single block wall, both methods are not acceptable for confined space isolation. Okay, even for any pipe containing hazardous material, that's not approved for hot work even. Now, process piping and equipment isolation, disconnection, look at the picture. Look at the picture. So use if a fully rated blind cannot be fitted, drain and purge the line, check for leaks, long-term maintenance method, seal or cover open ends, and this is approved for confined space isolation. Now, blind, make sure it is a solid metal between 2 pipe flanges. On the end of a disconnected pipe, blinds must be rated. So rating is critical. So blinds must be rated for potential internal pressures. So we must be familiar how much pressure we are going to stop, and accordingly the selection of blinds become more important. So three important criteria which truly you need to remember. The number one is make sure you understand the size, what size you required of this blind, Then the rating capacity, how much you required, and location. So three important. So SRL, you need to remember size, rating, and location. Now blind, how it looks like. See, gasket and flange blinds. Identify blinds on a blind list. No harm to prepare a blind list if you are putting blinds on a different locations. Different points are there. So you need to remember which blind is placed on which location and what is the number. Protect blind matching surfaces and make sure only use matching gaskets. Facility made blinds, use only once, then destroy. That is important point. And but this method is also approved for confined space entry. Now, hydraulic and pneumatic equipment isolation, just is a stored energy or potential energy. What we need to do, isolate fluid air under pressure, depressurize, relieve pressure, use mechanical blocks for equipment that may move. So the purpose is there shouldn't be any movement while you are, so make sure it is well depressurized and, the pressure is well relieved. Otherwise, mechanical block for equipment that may move. Now, that is more important like confined space isolation and more critical as well, because you truly need to prevent flammable, toxic, or oxygen displacing gases from entering the space. Purge that space between isolation and confined space. Check for interconnected equipment that may need isolation. Confirm adequate isolation lock and tag. Blinds and disconnection of piping are approved for confined space entry, and that's what we remember exactly. So you can complete this exercise C, but make sure you give the right answers. The last part of this book is all about restoration and returning to service. That means the job is done. Now you need to give back site to Saudi Aramco. So how are you going to return it to service? Isolation and LOTO removal. The process is quite, when can we isolation remove? Once the job is done or the complete, when a number of work crew permanently leaves the job, or operation shall always be the first to install and the last to remove locks and tags. That's what I told you to remember. And supervisors shall check what the equipment and area safe to return to service, use startup checklist. Okay. Now, when can isolation be removed, change, shift changes, check local isolation procedure. Operation usually exchange keys, contractors work to usually change locks and tags. So for each point, put more focus and try to understand and remember logically all steps. Isolation and LOTO removal. This is the important slide for sure. You need to remember R and R. That means restore work area, remove equipment and check housekeeping, notify person, mean affected persons or organizations, remove locks and tags. That means employee or contractor remove his lock and tag. Now, isolation and LOTO removal normal operations ensure that all isolations have been removed in proper sequence. So the last one would be the first one. So the sequence is important. Communicate with all affected personnel organizations, inspect the isolation locations to confirm the work is complete. So we need someone to inspect, to verify, and make sure the communication is done with the affected personnel organizations as well. Confirm all isolations lock and tag have been removed. Follow the local site specific startup procedures. And in case of emergency, this is another important slide. In case of emergency, the proponent organization like superintendent or shift superintendent, of course, they are authorized to, remove isolation locks and tags, but may remove the isolation locks and tags, but after confirming it is safe to do so. Must advise the operation to be an head or equivalent, record removal in the logbook, send written memo to operations or equivalent. So that is all about, and you can complete exercise D and don't complete until you are confident and make sure there shouldn't be any mistake. So what is the summary? It's all about in this course. So we have introduced isolation lock and tag hold tag program as described in GI 61012. And for more information about isolation, your work location, read your local site. So very much important point is, at whichever site you are, make sure you have site specific isolation or lockout tagout procedures, which you truly need to understand. Maybe one lockout tagout or isolation procedures for electrical energy, for mechanical, for hydraulic and pneumatic, you know, or maybe one procedure and all details are there. So I hope we have achieved all 4 objectives. We truly do understand what are the roles and responsibilities of proponent managers, you know, the operations and maintenance, and of course the contractor and crew. And we also understand what type of energy and systems that require isolation, and also the correct type of isolation methods. Discuss about different kind of methods as per Saudi Aramco, and we summarize how we gonna return safely the equipment back to the operations. I hope it will help. So please subscribe my trainings on the YouTube channel. It is just created for you guys. And if you believe it is not helpful for you, then share with someone who is seeking for a better career to work as a WPR. So maybe before investing his money with the training center, he can watch these videos and can get the real benefit. And you know, it is called proactive approach as well. Before you invest, like before you pay 1265 or 1300 real to a training center, no harm to you know, watch again and again my video, or you will get a clear understanding, and then you go and spend your 4 days there and make your target to achieve 100% marks in your third party exam. And then later on Aramco exam would also be easier for you. So I'll try to make another video with question and answers for all 3 books, important question and answers. And for this presentation, I need some time to prepare because I have few presentations, but still some amendments are there. So I'll try to create better question and answers for your support. I hope it will help. Good luck, and be happy, be energetic, be positive, and always remember me in your prayers. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.